I always considered myself a healthy person, but a few years ago I started reading food labels and I was shocked by some of the ingredients. That's when I decided I needed to become more aware of what I eat and where it comes from. On this episode of The Natural Princess, we'll explore the often overlooked world of dark leafy greens. First, we'll find out why they're so important for us to eat. Then we'll visit a local organic farm where the greens are ready for harvest. And finally, we'll meet in the kitchen for a couple of simple, flavorful recipes. Some people may pass by the dark leafy greens because they don't know what to do with them. Or maybe they pass them by because they're a little unsure of the sometimes intense flavor. But they're a really important thing for us to eat. I mean, they have minerals, vitamins, fiber. But don't take it from me, let's talk to an expert. So Allison, first, what are the dark leafy greens?
Well, let's see. There are collard greens, kale, broccoli rabe, Swiss chard, arugula. There's dandelion, chicory.
Big list.
There's a lot of them.
Why are they so important?
Well, they're really powerhouses of nutrition. Dark green leafy vegetables are high in vitamins, minerals, antioxidants.
What kinds of vitamins are we talking about?
Well, first of all, they're high in vitamin A. 1 cup serving of collard greens has about 10,000 international units of vitamin A, which is a very important nutrient for your eyes, for your reproductive health, and for growth and development in children.
What other kinds of vitamins?
Well, they're high in vitamin K, which is an important nutrient for normal blood clotting, for preventing atherosclerosis and osteoporosis.
And that's especially important for women.
Yeah, these are important for women of childbearing years and also menopausal aged women. They're also high in vitamin C and in folic acid, which is important for women who want to have children because it prevents birth defects. The Swiss chard and spinach are high in iron, and most of the cabbage family plants, the kale, the turnip greens, mustard greens, collard greens, they're all high in calcium. A 1 cup serving of collard greens has about as much calcium as a cup of milk.
Really?
Yeah, they're high in potassium also. 1 serving of collard greens or kale has about the same amount of potassium as a banana.
I mean, they always have, bananas and potassium, but this is another great source.
This is a great source, and it's low in calories and it doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. So it's a great choice for people with diabetes.
You mentioned omega-3s. What does that do for us?
Well, some of the essential fatty acids are important for our heart and our cardiovascular health, and also just for normal eye and brain function. So these are another source of those important fats in our diet. And they're high in fiber. They have a lot of fiber. 1 serving of greens have about between 3 to 5 grams of fiber. So that's a large amount.
Absolutely.
There's also antioxidants in these dark green leafy vegetables. There's something called I3C, or indole 3-carbinol, which is important for protecting us against breast and cervical cancer. They're also high in lutein and zeaxanthin, which are important for eye health.
So there's a lot of preventive properties.
There are. They can help prevent cancer, they can help maintain normal blood pressure, they're important for bone health, cardiovascular health.
How much should we be eating of these?
Well, the USDA recommends 3 1-cup servings per week, but I personally recommend 1 to 2 cups per day. I mean, I feel that this should be one of the top picks for your health in terms of vegetables.
So these definitely are powerhouses.
They are, and there's something that you can prepare in so many ways that you don't get tired of them either.
Is this something we should consider going organic?
Absolutely. Whenever possible, we should be choosing organic produce because organic food has been found to be higher in nutrition, and it's also good for the environment. There are no pesticides or herbicides on certified organic produce, and that's good for people and animals and the planet.
So now we know why dark leafy greens are so good for us to eat. Let's go visit a local organic farm where they're grown. Dark leafy greens are available year-round, but each has its peak season. That's why I'm here at Riverbank Farm, an organic farm in Roxbury, Connecticut, where they have some kale, Swiss chard, and salad greens ready for the picking. Just tell us a little bit about the farm.
So Riverbank Farm was started about 17 years ago. Dave came here as a carpenter, and he thought he was going to use the barn as a shop, and then the building boom kind of failed, and Dave took up an acre of land and said, hey, this is pretty easy, I guess I'll be a farmer.
But what I didn't realize that this was a really good farmland, so in 1991 I decided to do it full time. And at the time, yeah, organic farming was a little bit on the fringe, but I never really thought I'd wanted to be a conventional farmer, since it involves a lot of synthetic chemicals, and that can get pretty complicated.
If you're not organic, then as a farmer, you're going to be handling a lot of chemicals and pesticides and fertilizers, and it's toxic stuff, and we don't want to be around it. We don't want our workers to be around it. Right now there's all these greens, and we've just come out of winter, and our bodies just really need all those nutrients to kind of, revitalize ourselves. I mean, we're picking them this morning, go in the cooler, people eat them tomorrow. So that's really incredible compared to something that's been shipped across the country that's at least a week old.
What kinds of dark leafy greens do you grow here?
We grow spinach, kale, Swiss chard.
Well, the Swiss chard, we grow a rainbow chard and then a solid white chard. It's two varieties. The kale, we grow an Italian lacinato kale and red Russian kale, which is this. The varieties, we choose them based on flavor and the tenderness of the leaf. It's what people really like at the market. It's good for juicing, that sort of thing.
Spinach grows best in the spring and the fall. It really doesn't like hot weather. It'll start to bolt or go to seed. Kale is best, I think best in the fall after a frost. It really gets a lot sweeter. Chard is kind of an all-season kind of thing. It starts in the spring and we grow it all. We grow kale all year too, but it really tastes best in the fall.
You want to buy a bunch, however it's sold, that looks hydrated and healthy and not wilty. Not too much brown on the leaves. I mean, oftentimes there is, and it's still a good leaf, but mostly you want to look for just a nice, smooth, healthy looking leaf.
Don't be afraid of little bugs chomping on your leaves, because that happens and it still tastes as good. If you're doing organic farming or gardening, you're going to have to learn to expect that a little bit.
How long would it last, say, for someone?
It would last, I would say, at least a week if it's stored correctly in the refrigerator. When they get home, to rinse it again, maybe just soak it in a bowl of water for 5 minutes and then shake off the water and put it in a bag that's sealed so that the water isn't coming off the leaf, because then it tends to wilt.
A lot of the greens that we buy from California in supermarkets they call it a triple wash procedure, and they're using a chlorine solution. And it's organic vegetables, so you don't necessarily want to be eating chlorine. I would say buy local whenever you can.
Find your local farmer's market and just go every week and support local farmers, whether it's organic or not. It's just buying it locally and fresh. It has the most nutrition, and it's the best way to do it.
What's your favorite thing to do with a dark leafy green?
I love to eat kale raw. I chop it kind of small and put it in my salad. And I also love it like sauteed with a little bit of garlic and olive oil and soy sauce and a little bit of honey. It's really nice.
Always consider buying local produce, because there is nothing fresher. But now it's time to get cooking. I'll meet you in the kitchen. So now it's time to get cooking. First, I'm going to make a garlicky kale side dish, and then I'm going to make Swiss chard with chickpeas and some Indian-inspired flavorings. But first up is our garlicky kale. And what I've done is I've taken a bunch of the red Russian kale from Riverbank Farm. I've washed it, dried it, removed the stems, and coarsely chopped it. But I wanted to show you my technique for how to de-stem the kale. So what you want to do is you want to hold your kale leaf and literally put your fingers like this and tear, and voila, it's destemmed. I'm gonna do this other one, and ta-da, we're set. And then I usually just pile the leaves on top of themselves. I roll them up, what they call a chiffonade, but just a fancy way of saying ribbons. And we're gonna chop the rest of this up. All right, the scent from this kale is absolutely amazing. Freshness definitely counts. All right, so let's put this in our bowl here. All right, now we're just gonna set that aside, and we're gonna get to my favorite part, the garlic. Now, I've got about 3 cloves of garlic here, but if you don't like as much garlic, just use less. But for me, I can't get enough garlic. So I just crush it with my knife, and that way, that's how I peel it. It's a good way to get your aggression out when you pound a little bit of the garlic. Now, you can mince it, chop it. I like really thin slices, so that way when it cooks, you kind of see these little bits of garlic throughout. But it's really your choice. It doesn't really make too much of a difference. All right, so there's our garlic. Now, I'm usually not one for the little bits of glass bowls, but it's just a lot easier to bring it over to the counter without dropping anything on the floor, because I inevitably make a mess. All right, so now we're ready to heat our pan. You're gonna wanna put it on probably about medium or so, but when you drop the kale in, I drop the temperature down just a little bit because you don't want to cook the kale too fast or it's going to burn. Once you feel some nice heat coming off of your pan, I'd say maybe about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now I happen to use extra virgin olive oil pretty much for everything, but if you just have regular olive oil, that's absolutely fine. I like the flavor of the olive oil, so that's why I pretty much always use extra virgin. And we're gonna want that to heat up just a little bit, and then we're gonna dump in our garlic. Saute this around a little bit, keep it moving. You don't want the garlic to burn, you'll get a little bitter. Our garlic is really starting to get fragrant now and ever so slightly golden, and this is when you're gonna wanna put in the kale. This is gonna look like a lot, especially for a side dish, but it is going to cook down. Once we've kind of mixed it all around, what I like to do is I add a little bit of stock. And whatever kind of stock you have, chicken, beef, vegetable, I think it imparts a really nice kind of richness to the flavor and almost creates a little bit of a sauce around it. So I just pour it over the top. So once you've poured all your stock on, what you want to do is put the top on and just let everything cook down. And I would check it every couple of minutes, turn it, make sure everything is getting nice and cooked evenly, but keep that top on it because that's the way it'll all wilt down really nicely. I'm gonna check on it now. Let's turn it around. It's cooking down really nicely. I love the smell of just really fresh vegetables. It's amazing. It's like a little bit of nature right in your own kitchen. Okay, put the lid back on and let it cook down, but it's looking good. Everything is wilting down really nice and evenly. Before I plate it up, a personal thing, I like to add some crushed red pepper flake. But if you don't like that, if it's too spicy, you don't have to do that. It's perfectly good just with the garlic and olive oil. So, just gonna add a couple of pinches and stir it around. All right, let me take this off the stove, and now I'm gonna plate this up. Grab my spoon. Just look at that amazing green color with the little bits of red from the red pepper flakes and nice slices of garlic. Makes my mouth water just looking at it. Now I like to serve this garlicky kale side dish with chicken piccata or even a really nice piece of white flaky fish. Sky is really the limit, it's whatever you want, but those are some of my personal favorites, and voila, garlicky kale side dish. Okay, so now we're on to our second dish of the day with dark leafy greens, Swiss chard with chickpeas and some Indian-inspired flavorings. You're gonna start out with 1 bunch of Swiss chard. Go ahead, wash it and chop it all. I'm gonna need 3 carrots, 1 tomato, and half of about a medium-sized onion. First, we're gonna need some garlic. 2 cloves will do you, and mince it pretty fine. because you just really want it to add a little bit of flavor to the entire dish, so you want to make sure the little pieces can get all the way through it all. I'm going to want to preheat my pan, about medium heat I would say. While that heats, let's get to our onion. And you're going to want about half of a medium-sized onion. Nice thin slices. Alright, so now let's go back to our pan and put some olive oil in it. And like a couple of tablespoons, just a couple of rings around. You want to coat the bottom nicely. And now it's time to add our garlic and onions. Now at this point, I like to add just a little bit of salt to help break down the onion. And next up, we've got to take care of our carrots. Now I always serve this dish as a main dish, nice piece of crusty multigrain bread. You don't need anything else. It's very filling. And it's good for you too. You're going to want to cut the carrots into pretty small pieces. You're going to want them to cook evenly and pretty quickly. Right after we add our carrots, we're going to want to add those Indian-inspired flavors. And I've got them pre-measured out here. Half a teaspoon of ground coriander and half a teaspoon of ground cumin, quarter of a teaspoon of ground cardamom, clove, cinnamon, turmeric, cayenne, and paprika. I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. I don't want the garlic to brown too much. And that's looking really nice. Let's throw in our carrots. Now the reason I like to put the spices in at this point is because it will really coat the dish itself. So just dump it in and mix it around. And I'm going to add just a touch more olive oil. And now I'm going to chop my tomato. And I leave pretty chunky pieces. They're going to cook down and you're going to want something to kind of hold on to when you put your fork into the dish. So let's go check and see how everything's doing. Now if you don't like Indian flavored spices, you could go with more Mediterranean style, even Southwestern with a little chili powder, and just replace the spices that you really don't like. Our carrots are looking pretty tender, so now we want to add our Swiss chard. Just grab in bunches and put it in there. And like we did with the kale, turn it around in the pan, get it coated with all those wonderful spices and olive oil. And add a pinch more salt. Okay, so once you've turned it all around, you've got it well coated, put the lid on, and then just check back in a couple of minutes to see how it's all wilting down. All right, let's check it, see how it's doing. It's cooking down really nicely and smells good. All right, so now we're gonna wanna add our tomatoes. And we'll mix that around. Now put the lid back on and just let that cook some more. And in the meantime now, we bring out our chickpeas. Drain and rinse your chickpeas. And just give them a quick rinse. Now really, once you add the chickpeas, you just really want to get them warmed all the way through. So let's put our lid on. That looks good. Everything looks nicely cooked. Let's turn off the heat because I am hungry. Just, it's like a rainbow of colors. You've got the rainbow chard, you've got the orange of the carrots, the red of the tomato. Delicious. And like I said, I make this as a main dish in and of itself with just some crusty bread. You'd be surprised how filling it is. And voila, Swiss chard with chickpeas and Indian spices. I am ready to eat some of my garlicky kale and my Swiss chard with chickpeas. And I hope I've inspired you to explore the world of dark leafy greens. Because you know, we really are what we eat. We should treat ourselves like royalty, with only the best ingredients nature has to offer. So from this natural princess to all of you, eat well and be well. I'll see you next time.